Now, the next thing we got to do is solve their problem. The only way we can solve their problem is to determine what that problem is. We got to ask them, what's going on? What's the situation with the house? Is there some way I can help you with this? What is it going to take to better your situation? And now you might say, well, gee, asking questions like that is kind of private. Aren't I really kind of sort of digging into their personal space? Well, you might feel that way, but what I can tell you from experience is the better you are at determining what their problem is, the better you're going to be at solving it. So, and a very big lesson I've learned on that topic is to listen. Listen. The more you listen to the seller and what they tell you, the more the easier it's going to be for you to solve their problem. Next thing we need to do, assuming we're moving forward, is we need to get access to the house. Now, this assumes you're going to go out there. If you've already got your estimate of repairs and you really don't need access to the house, then it's not a big deal. However, when we sell it, when it comes time to sell it to the rehabber, the investor that we're going to be talking about here, we are going to need access because they're going to want in. All right, the process of what we're doing here is we're going to take an ugly house, and we're not going to touch it. We're going to wholesale it or flip it to another investor, the one who is going to be the one to fix it, and sell it to that nice young family who goes to the bank and gets a mortgage and buys this pretty house. Well, at the moment, it's not very pretty. So we're just going to tie it up, and we're going to flip it to this other investor who then is going to go do the repairs and sell it to the end user. Well, that investor, who you're going to hear me refer to as Ricky Rehabber, I always call them Ricky Rehabber because, after all, you know who I mean, and Ricky Rehabber could be a man or a woman. So even if we don't need access for our own needs, we've already got our estimate of repairs and we've done it the way we talked about bad, really bad, awful with that square footage multiplier, we do need to get access for our buyer. Ricky Rehabber is going to want to be able to get in the house. So how do we do that? Well, if the seller's local, it shouldn't be a problem. They're local, they can meet us there. If the seller's out of town, well, then we may need to get access to a key. And what I have found many times is there'll be a neighbor who has a key, or there'll be a handyman person or a relative locally that has a key. And that's great. So that's what we would do. But if there is no key, or if there is no one holding a key, or if, and this is common, a lot of the sellers of these vacant ugly houses are burned out landlords. I have a feeling there are some burned out landlords on this call. Burned out landlords that have had it. The tenant trashed the house. They've fixed it so many times over the years, they're just not going to fix it again. And one of the last things the tenant did was change the locks. And now the owner doesn't even have a key to their own house. Well, simple solution to that, and this happens a lot for me up here. I live in upstate New York, and there's a lot of folks who relocate. They leave the area, and then they look for some place to go where it's warmer, for example. A lot of people leave here because it gets cold in the winter. Well, fine, it suits me. And for example, I had a lady that called me on my ad from Florida. Now, my ad's running, I've got all kinds of advertising going on up here. Well, one of her friends called her and said, hey, I saw this ad. This it says, I buy houses. You got to give him a call. So she called me and didn't have access to the house because the tenant had changed the key. And so what I offered was to change the locks for her. And either I or I have a guy that runs around and does it for me will go out and literally take the lock off the house and put a new one on it. How are you going to do that? Well, it's not hard, and any handyman knows how to take a lock off a door very quickly using a drill. And all it requires is a 3/8 inch metal bit, and you just put that bit about 1/8 of an inch above where the key goes into the lock and drill straight in about an inch. You'll take all the pins out, and now you can open the door with a screwdriver. That is breaking and entering, but so we would only ever do that with permission. And what I have found builds great rapport with a seller is my willingness to change the locks on the house for them at no charge. A locksmith's going to go out and charge them $100 between the lock set and their time and everything else. I'm willing to do it for nothing. And then when you do that, here's another great idea, assuming you've got a deal on the house. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but you'll know by the time you go out and put the locks on, you'll know if you, or certainly you'll be confident that there is a deal there. Go ahead and hang a lockbox on the door. You can buy them at Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards for about $29. They're very well made today. They didn't used to be, but they are now. And you put a key in the lockbox hanging on the door. So now, thinking ahead, when Ricky Rehabber wants to go see the house, we don't have to go. See, now if you're following what I'm talking about here, and you're lazy like I am, you can do this whole thing without ever picking your fanny up out of your chair. You can pull comps online, which we're going to talk about. You can have your bird dog get you that estimate of repairs by categorizing it bad, really bad, awful. You can have somebody else go drill off the locks if necessary, have them hang a lockbox and put a key in it. Now when Ricky Rehabber calls you, say, head on out to 123 Elm Street, here's the lockbox combination, and let them go in and spend their time. And I mean, after all, if this place is a piece of junk, what are they going to steal? There's nothing to steal. That's the whole point. So if you're following along here, you're actually starting to say to yourself, good gracious, I can do this without even leaving my desk. That's the beauty of it. Okay, so we got to get access. Also, at this point, we want to consider, at least for the sake of discussion, whether or not the seller is a bank. If the property is bank-owned, and we will have determined that already when we determine the ownership of the property. If it's been, taken back by foreclosure, a tax roll search is going to indicate that. It's going to show the owner is, Aquin Bank. And so now you've got an opportunity to get ahead of the curve on an REO property or a foreclosure property owned by this bank. And what I suggest you do is if you determine it's owned by Aquin or it's whatever lender, it could be FHA or VA, look for do a little looking around at the bank's website and find the local agent who represents them. If you have to call the bank and ask them who's the local agent that represents them, that might give you a leg up. So now you contact the agent. You know about this house at 123 Elm Street. It's bank owned. There's no sign in the yard yet, which means it's not in the MLS. In fact, the agent may not even have a listing agreement on it yet. So you contact the agent and you say, hey, I found this house at 123 Elm Street. It's vacant. It's in need of repairs. It's something that I like to buy. I would like to make an offer on it as soon as you have it available. Well, A, you will likely impress this realtor by knowing about it so early, and B, now when they get their listing agreement, they're likely to come back to you before it goes in the MLS and say, go ahead and make me that offer now. Because if they submit this offer and it's accepted, they're not only going to be the listing agent, but they're going to be the selling agent, which means their paycheck is double. And I don't know any agents out there that don't like double paychecks. So this gives you a leg up over your competition because it's not even in the MLS. No one knows about it. Now you're building rapport with an REO listing agent. They'll start telling you about other deals that they have, assuming you follow through now. You better do what you said you'd do. Assuming you follow through, they'll let you know about other deals they have before they ever go in the MLS that maybe you didn't find at all. Relationships with REO listing agents can be very valuable to you, and this is a great way to get to know one and impress them at the same time. Next thing we got to do is pull comps. In order to strike the deal, we have to know what this place is worth after repairs, the ARV, after repair value. Where are we going to get comps? Well, they can come from a bunch of different places. One is your realtor. Any realtor you're working with can go in the MLS and in about a minute and a half, assuming they're already logged in, pull comps on a property and help you determine the value. Very simple, but does require their help. You can go to your tax assessor's office and pull local recent sales. Now, I'm not talking about assessed value. We don't use assessed value to determine valuation. But we do look at sales, recently sold similar properties that are nearby. Now, probably the best source of this information, again, for a very, very little bit of money, so it's available to you 24/7, anytime you have an internet connection, is Fidelity SiteX. We use them in here, and I can be on the phone with a seller, pull comps while we're talking. It takes like 2 seconds. Log in, put in the address, bam, there's my whole report on the property, ownership, tax roll information, comparables, and a valuation. The great thing about Fidelity is it'll pull the comps, and then it will, by way of an algorithm, it'll come up with a value for you, and it'll give you a confidence rating, low, medium, or high. And anytime you have a value with a high confidence rating, you can really be confident yourself that that is accurate. And I like that. It takes kind of all the thinking out of it. And again, if you go to CameronDirect.com, go to the Tools page, you will find a link to Fidelity, to Scott, my rep, and he is currently waiving the setup fee for anybody who tells him that I sent you. And it's a really great service, and I'm telling you, if you don't have access to something,